So we left at the wow wow wow. Wow. We left at the
Wow.
that was not the sound effect that I wanted. Yeah, this one. We left at this one. Walking Dead. The fella isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying though? He was reciting a play, I believe. I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare's. Oh, so Shakespeare is canonical in this universe. That's... So is there Sherlock Holmes as well? I mean, Sherlock Holmes didn't exist, but like the books? Interesting. Act 5, Scene 5. And our victim's name is Shamspear, by the way. Yes, I made the title a pun. I'm sorry. William Shamspear came back to life. It was all a sham. Oh, the bike is fixed now. I think last time the bike was completely busted. Whatever you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shamspear did consume poison as we deduced. But he has been actually eating rat poison for funsies for a couple of years, so it only knocked him out. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Oh no, the bike is still busted. Good, good. I mean, I guess it's only been a couple of days. Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. I hope he doesn't have to pay rent every time he's in jail. Technically, he's not at the house. What's that man doing over there? It looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah! He just ran off. Yeah, we've seen him last time. But he was one of the jury? No, I remember we saw him on the street and he was fighting with someone. I think it was Shamspear. He was fighting with Shamspear. Okay. So the bike is still fucked. I don't think you would go very far with that bike, but you can try, Susato. Ryder's incompetency went against the lightning pole. The light pole? Mr. Natsume has been practicing on this bicycle, I think. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. With the exception of the top floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Gary Deb live, all the windows are bricked up. That's because of an old window. I know! We've already talked about this, not in the undergame, but even in this game. Yeah, they don't have money for that. Oops. No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you. Gary Deb household and Mr. Natsume's lodgings are in a prominent position there on the corner. Sometimes when I look at the building, I can help feeling that it's a bit of a slant. It does rather look as though it would collapse in even the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Sosiki-san has such a hunched back. Why has somebody built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think? That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? But it already has a perfectly good body. Well, it's true that British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner. And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man. I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British 2-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people do have 3 sections: head, torso, and legs. Do you ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? Just a little bit. He's fine, he's fine. Oh, I didn't mean to click that. Oh, it was just a snowman? Okay. Oh, right, we have to go to Gary Deb to ask what's up. And he's gonna say the ceiling. Here we are again. Eccentric landlords, eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Gary Deb's the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. Yeah, I know. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Gary Deb? Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor now? The cannons? Yeah, I have no idea. I think he just stole stuff from the military because he was very bad at being a soldier. Let's see if it says anything. Single apron drying on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. A real cannon. I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action in the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? No, it doesn't say anything. Your military uniform, yes. Ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement, bosh. Not in active service now, you know? Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the whole thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could just be what he needs. Very tactful, Mrs. Sato. Very tactful indeed. Good to see Mr. Guy. Spell on the wall. For distinguished participation, if you remember. I remember. Wouldn't know it to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know. Devil-may-care? What did you get up to? Well, all in the past now, of course, and best left there. Best not. I want to know now. Enormous mortar shells. Quite something, seeing them up close. Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Gary Deb? Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training on day. Why are you firing at your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it for justice, does it? Well, one has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from my little mishaps one day on display. Oh, does the great lawyer and like the great detective want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? No. You look very dashing, blah blah blah, drawn by an art studio. Oh, you look so wonderful, blah blah blah. A true landlord. Yep, we know, we know. I'm not reading because we've been here before. Singularly dangerous. Yeah, he's not alright. The cakes are still all fucked up. Well, it was just yesterday, so... Battle of my wand. Okay. I think that's everything. Yes. Okay, we can go back to the story, maybe. It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chat rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, you still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed, that you found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspeare, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a belly screw loose. So hard to choose which category Soseki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the whole bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet. New BL just dropped. Romeo and Hamlet. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. Seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have would have had much in common. Sham's here interpretation to his agreement leads to a shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude. By the way, I'm just thinking, she's just talking to me because apparently she can read my mind. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember. And it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Gary Deb noticed that there was no light from his room or something, I suppose? Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamesphere got back. And the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark here. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Susato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garideb, you're up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly? I'm not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean. That's a very good point. I can imagine that you would hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a belly outrage. I'm an ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Then how did you know? It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is applied to the building by pipes. Yes. Yeah. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say if I was to light the gas lamps up here, what do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly, but at the same time, the lights in all other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. When you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen though? It sounds rather undesirable. Totally good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out. And barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here, and they glow brighter than in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Oh, of course, because when people come back home in the evening, and before they go to sleep at night, they're guaranteed to... And what they're... What? They're guaranteed to do is light up or put the lamps and fires. Clever, I guess. Yeah. Wow, using lights in the dark? Amazing. In point in fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. That's fascinating. Not really. Oh well, nothing to it really. And I can't really see what it's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Gary Dev is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, you've done as much investigating as you can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. Good idea. Okay, go back. Can you actually tell me some more about this? Nope, he doesn't want to be shown anything. Oh, I can go anywhere. Look, Mr. Nadhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Esquire? Yes? What is he? Tell me. Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yeah, moving on. We've got some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible. Oh. I'm stuck in this cell suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. I'm so sorry to hear that. That selfish shyster? Make up your own mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Weakly wishy-washy William. Well, it seems that Mr. Shakespeare was never actually dead in the first place. Ah yes, that makes sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh. Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mrs. Shakespeare, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer I am the lawyer. I am your lawyer. In fact. Who do you think I am? We need to hear your start of the story. Ugh, why am I cursed like this? Gonna start with this. Okay, what about this? No, nothing. What about the soap? Mr. Natsume, what do you know about this? Ah, there it is. That lathery lowlife that took my neighbor's life and sent me sliding to the depths of despair. Slippery, sickly, psychotic saboteur. You've really gone off soap, haven't you? Absolutely, and I've made up my mind. The next time someone gives me soap as a present, it's friendship finished firmly forever. I don't know what we can blame soap for everything that's happened, Mr. Natsume. Okay, he doesn't want to talk about the teacups. Okay. That's everything then? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell, but Mr. Naruhodo, I'm eternally grateful to you helping me with that cursed case yesterday. The case saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening at past 9, it must have been when I visited Mr. Shakespeare. So, did you go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong. I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties in with what Mr. Garideb said, that the victim went out and came back again after 8. We met again later that evening at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that I'd clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the words of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was stronger? It wasn't a delightful debate. I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare. And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea? No, never, not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit, I swear it, categorically. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now. And in that time I've learned that this is no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look. They all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to even leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite for my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then, 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? How? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no. He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead, and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered? But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room history really was. Hey, well. Gosh, was it really so awful? Was it the artist? Oh, no need to apologize. You haven't missed much. The game keeps repeating itself over and over again. Repeating itself over and over? Yes, that's what the game is doing. How did the room's history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? Oh, there I go. At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes following my back, watching me. Wasn't that the cat? Do you think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been, I think it's Gary Deb. It's been one long nightmare since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who died in that room lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me. That really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Champspeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right, I know it, and that's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Soton-san knows how to make a man listen. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. You Mr. Garideb? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Ah, perhaps that may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. Because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close Dude, if your lights flicker, you notice it. And if you've lived there for a very long time, you know the patterns. It's not that hard. What do you mean you pay so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shamspeare isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around, he'll be able to tell us what happened, and we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. I do hope you're alright. Excuse me? Inspector Gregson. I couldn't help overhearing what you just said, and on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh? What do you want first? The bad news first. Right, well, in that case, the good news it is. Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why did you ask me my preference? As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, was just unconscious. He came around now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we've managed to get a written statement from him already. Isn't that wonderful? Thank goodness it's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Sorry, no, that's not on the cards. What? Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shamspeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh gee, I wonder who. I'm sorry that I say I do. Yes, he pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. By sweet poison did he seek it to end my life. That wicked caitiff, Soseki Natsume. So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations. No. And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat all at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, you somehow managed to prove that he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this? Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole? Can't keep coming to court. I'm beginning to think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, good morning. So, here we are again. Yes, again. What's the bad news? Oh dear, you heard, didn't you? If you come in shouting at the top of your voice, people can't help hearing what you say. Oh, I'm sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Mrs. Sato. What is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Van Ziek. Wow, what a surprise! I'm not reading it because we already know this. Sure. You're too dumb to commit a murder, I know that. Trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Oh yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it, Mr. Schonblum. I don't care. Good. Yeah, that's probably for the best. If he were here, he might be tempted to rely on this. No, I would not rely on him, actually. Again? And I actually want to talk about the game. I'm not having fun playing this one. I really am not. I liked Susato's trial. The first part of the game was okay. The first part of the game was okay because most everything was kind of new. But they just keep reintroducing the same characters, and it's like not like the characters have developed. They're still the same person. I don't know. And then I know in real life people just don't get to the point, or else the world would be a better place. But I'm going through the motions every time, and like if, for example, Soseki's when he starts saying like a bunch of words that start with an S, for example, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's your thing. I know you make. It's not haikus. It's just everything starts with an S. Ha ha ha. Like it's not being fun. It's not like the other Ace Attorney games. I feel like they're fun. The characters are silly. Yeah, they don't make sense. Yeah, they're also very flat. But there's some silly shenanigans in happenings and goings on in the game that makes up for the song and dance of characters endlessly repeating themselves. Like I don't want to see Van Zeeks again. To be quite honest, he's gonna be racist again. We know that because there's no development in these characters. So we're gonna come back to the same song and dance of him being racist and us being stop being racist. And him throwing the wine glasses around. Haha, so funny. So funny. And it's not funny, actually. It's just. Eh. It's just eh. Honestly, it's just eh. And every time I see Sholmes, I don't think, oh, here comes a funny moment. No, I see, oh god, no, not this fucking guy again. I was very excited because I see a lot of fan art for the game. I see a lot of fans. I see like a lot of people saying that this is the best Ace Attorney game. No, it is not. I only like two characters. It's Iris and Susato. See, but that's not how I play games. That's now not how I've ever played Ace Attorney. Because the other games in the series also have overarching stories. So you have to remember things from all parts of the games. And they don't feel like this. So in the first trilogy of Ace Attorney games, you don't get the dance of deduction part. You get your judicial assistant is a psychic, and she can break into people's minds. She can break psych locks. You break them with evidence, and it works a lot better than it does with this game. Like, I've spaced out this playthrough way more than I spaced me playing through the first trilogy of games. And this is just a duology. And it's not like the game is gonna surprise me, because I think that the twist will be that Kazuma comes back and maybe he's evil or something. But like, that's not because the story is particularly telling me that. It's just he's everywhere in the promotion materials, even for the second part of the game. So he's gonna be there, you know. They spoil themselves even though they don't do it textually. So yeah, I'm not having fun with this one. If it's okay with everyone, I will drop this game. I will drop this game. It's not fun. Sometimes I feel frankly like it's insulting me. I feel frankly like it's insulting me and my intelligence. I know that I have memory problems and all that, but I'm not dumb. I do have memory problems. I'm not dumb. Yeah, I'm kinda sad that I didn't like this one. I'm very sad because I always recommend everyone to play the trilogies. The first trilogy at least. And maybe they would want to get into the other games, and I can't do it. So if it is fine with everyone, I will drop this playthrough. I will save them. I will save it. Maybe one day I'll come back to it. And if I come back to it, it will be here waiting for me.